So good, yes. So again, I'm a CELTA trainer, and today I'd like to talk to you about the CELTA interview. And some of you have attended our previous webinar about the CELTA course and what you need to know about it. This is the second webinar about CELTA interview. And in a couple of weeks, there's going to be an announcement about our next webinar, which will mostly be about some frequently asked questions about the course. So I think that if you are here today, it means that you're thinking about it, taking this course and getting this actually great qualification. And please join us in a couple of weeks for the next session. And in December, there will be something more, which will be a bit more practical, because today I'm going to talk about the application procedure and process. But in December, they're going to be our last kind of CELTA session. And there we're going to talk about some more practical things and how CELTA helps you to become better and manage the classroom and motivate your learners better. But today is about the CELTA interview. I'd like to learn something about you. So could you please write in the chat box the answers to these questions? So here's the chat box. Yeah, you can put it like this. The questions are: where you are you in Ukraine or another country? Which school or company you work for? Where do you teach, if you are a teacher right now? And age of your students and the number of years in teaching. Could you please write your answers in the chat box like I just did? All right, people don't feel like writing today. All right, more people are joining. All right, thank you, Maria, for sharing your answers. Yes, and Elena joined us, great. Right. Major English School. All right. Students are 12 to 45, 18 to 21 years old. Well, this is good. All right, Alina is teaching at university. Good. All right, well, this is great. And looking at your answers, I can see that, I can tell you that it looks like CELTA is the right qualification for you and the course to think about. We're going to have some time at the end of the session for me to answer your questions. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat box and I will go back to it at the end of the webinar. Right, so let's get started. So yes, why do people want to take the CELTA course? And all right, Olga, sure. Oh, more people are writing. Thank you very much for sharing your answers. Yes, it's nice to have you here. All right, so why do you want to take CELTA? And for a lot of people, this is because they want to develop professionally, they want to work in other countries, and they want to have this certificate, which means a lot, and it does mean a lot to every teacher because it is a great accomplishment in itself. It's also a very practical course, and it will definitely affect your teaching and take it to the next level, no matter how many years in teaching you already had. And it is one of the most widely recognized certificates out there in the world. So if you want to continue teaching, well, in the private sector mostly, some universities will accept that. And yes, if we talk about Ukraine right now, The contact hours on the CELTA course, that's 120 plus 80 hours. So together it's 200 hours will be credited towards your professional development if you're working at a state institution in Ukraine. But still, this is one of the most widely recognized certificates. And in a lot of cases, this is a life-changing experience for a lot of teachers, and it does give you interesting insights into teaching, and gives you the chance to reflect on the teaching practices that you have. So it is a great step in professional development of anyone who considers taking it. And sometimes people say that this is a pricey qualification, so it does cost a lot, but we're lucky that in Ukraine, the prices are actually lower than they are out there in the world. But I will say that it's 100% worth it. So here's some information, as I promised, about our center. And here you can see Cambridge Assessment English Teaching Qualification Center, UA800. This is the official number. And if you're thinking about taking the CELTA course, you need to check that the center has this number, like UA800, and you can check it on the official Cambridge English website, just to make sure that this center is authorized to administer this course. And we're one of the oldest teaching qualification centers in Eastern Europe, because we've been doing this in Kiev since 2005, which is quite a lot. So we have 15 years of experience. We do have a great team, full-time teachers and trainers who are working at our center here in Kiev. And they're very experienced CELTA trainers. Some of them I will take myself as an example. I worked on CELTA courses in many countries, in Poland, China, Lebanon, and Thailand, where I worked for 1 year as a CELTA trainer, working on CELTA courses as well. So which means that I had the chance to work with a lot of great CELTA trainers that we invite to work at our center now, and a lot of candidates and students from a lot of places in the world. I would say probably from more than 25 countries now. And again, so one of the things that I love about my job as a CELTA trainer is that it gives me the chance to keep in touch with a lot of great professionals out there in the world. And now I have the chance to bring those professionals to Ukraine to work on CELTA courses at our center. And which is great, especially with the CELTA Online, because at the moment our center runs offline CELTA courses and online CELTA courses. So you have two options, whichever suits you better. Right. So yes, and here are some of the pictures of our happy CELTA graduates. So with offline courses, if you look at the pictures, you can see that we had some online courses here in the middle. You can see people wearing masks, so you can guess that that course was taken this year. And yeah, so this is what CELTA life at our center is like. Okay. So CELTA is a pre-service course, which means that you do not have to have teaching experience in order to apply for this course. This is a highly recognized course around the world. It's a great combination of theory and practice, and it is assessed by a Cambridge representative. So yes, you take it at an authorized center with qualified CELTA trainers, so we don't have any trespassers here. All of the trainers have been approved and verified by Cambridge, but also each course is assessed by Cambridge assessor. So there's one day when this person comes to our center and looks at all the paperwork and the portfolios and everything to make sure that we're doing our job in accordance with the Cambridge standards. And as I mentioned, all of the trainers are verified and approved by Cambridge Assessment English, and they do need to have the right sort of training to become a CELTA trainer. So not everyone can become a CELTA trainer, and they have to undergo through a lot of training. All right, so here I'd like you to get involved a little bit. So here are 4 facts about CELTA. One of them, about CELTA requirements, and one of them is incorrect. Could you please write the number in the chat box of the statement which is not true about Cambridge CELTA requirements? Which one is not true? All right, yes, all good answers. Actually, number 4 is not true. Thank you very much for participating. And yes, so actually, you do have to be 18 years of age to take this course. You have to be a high school graduate and ready to start a degree at the university level. One of the most important requirements, I'm not saying that the rest of them are not important, but C1 or IELTS Band 7 is something that is necessary for the candidate to complete the course successfully. And of course, number 4 is the potential and desire to develop the necessary skills. And this is what we're going to talk about now, because we are going to talk about the CELTA interview. So during the interview, you're very likely to be asked about your level of English, because it is the responsibility of the center to understand if the candidate can successfully pass the course. We do not want to, we shouldn't and we can't, well, sure can, but that would get us into trouble. We cannot accept anyone who we think is likely to fail the course, because it is possible to fail the CELTA course. But the fact that the selection procedure is so rigorous makes us proud of the fact that not many people actually fail the course. About 2% of the candidates worldwide, not in Ukraine, fail the CELTA course. So we do want to know about the level of English, which is important for the teacher to teach their lessons and to write the written assignments. And we want to know about the motivation, the potential that a candidate needs to have or has at the moment to pass the course. So here's the application process. Normally you're asked to, well, it can vary depending on the center. Normally you're asked to fill out an application form after you've registered, in which you will provide some information about yourself, which is important for the center because we need to make sure that the person is real. There will be some written tasks. Sometimes they're part of the application form, sometimes they're given to you separately. And thanks to the written tasks, we can actually understand what the written language of the person is like, because most of our CELTA trainers are also international examiners. So we can understand if your language is C1 or not, because you do not have to have a certificate to confirm that. That's why the written part is so important. Also, you'll be asked questions during the interview. Your spoken language will be assessed, and you will have an interview with a CELTA trainer, which is also important because it's not about the trainer learning about you. It's also about you learning about the trainers and the center. So it's a great opportunity to ask questions. And after that, successful candidates are normally given the letter of acceptance. At our center, we normally give if someone is not ready to take the course right now, we normally send them an email with a list of recommendations and action points for them to address. And we recommend applying for the course again in a couple of months or in a year. And then after the letter of acceptance, people normally make the payment. So what questions can you expect at the interview? Questions about your motivation, teaching experience, and the contexts, like teaching children, teaching exam preparation classes, if you have any teaching experience. Language awareness, and we'll talk about this more. Teaching ideas, general health, which is very important because we want people to pass, and we need to make sure that they're able to do that. Yes, this is a good one. How you cope with stress in your life, because intensive CELTA courses could be quite stressful. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, working on a team, because you'll be working with other candidates on the course. So let's talk about language awareness first. And I have prepared some tasks. You should expect questions during the interview and in the application form about grammar, vocabulary, and functional language. When I say functional language, this means the language and phrases could be grammar and vocabulary used in specific situations. For example, the function of giving advice. And for that, you can use such exponents as, I think you should. If I were you, I'd do this. So different structures under this kind of umbrella topic of giving advice. And when we talk about language on the CELTA course and language awareness, we talk about the meaning, form, and pronunciation. So here's an example for you. I've been to Paris several times. So we all know that this is the present perfect. Yes, the sentence is in the present perfect tense. The verb is in the present perfect tense. The meaning, an action that happened in the past but is connected to now. So right now we care about the experiences someone has had. The form would be subject plus have or has plus verb 3 or past participle or verb plus ed. And pronunciation, so some things which we need to tell our students about are, as an example here, we have. Yeah, so normally it is contracted. Not I have been to Paris, but I've been to Paris several times. So here's just some general information about meaning, form, and pronunciation. So in the application, one of the common tasks is about the parts of speech, or the word class is another term for that. So here's the list of the ones that people are normally asked about. You can have a look at them, but I'm pretty sure that looking at the names and the fact that, well, you're from this region, I'm pretty sure you don't have any problem with that. So here's a short task for you. This is an example of a task you can see in the application form. So here's a sentence. It is a good idea to take CELTA, but it is a very intensive course. And here I've highlighted the red words. I'd like you to ask about the part of speech. So number 1, it is a pronoun. 2, good. 3, idea. 4, take. 5, but. And 6, very. Could you please? All right, thank you. Yes, please write the answers. So can you write the number and the part of speech? Right. We got to 4 already in the chat box. This is great. What about 5? Got stuck here a bit. Good. Yes, it is a conjunction. Number 5. Yes. All right. This is great. Good job, everyone. No mistakes. This is good. Yes, and here are the correct answers. Yeah. So you're right about all of them. Great job. Now, another task you'll often see in an application form is about identifying tenses. So I've taken that exam twice. What is the tense here? Could you please write it in the box? All right, C. Any other ideas? So we do unanimously agree on this one. Yes, That was present perfect. I changed the second slide, not the last one. Yes, so that was present perfect. Sorry about the misunderstanding. So definitely. And the form for that one would be subject plus have plus verb ed or past participle or verb 3. Yes. Another one is identifying mistakes. Yes, people are already writing it. So I've been to Beijing 2 years ago. Why is the sentence incorrect? Valeria's written some answers already. Okay, Rina. Yes, good. Exactly. We cannot use the present perfect with time expressions when we indicate when something happened. Good job. So it looks like you are ready. If you are worried about doing the CELTA, taking the CELTA interview and the CELTA course, so go ahead and do it. Yes. Another example is, what's the difference in meaning between the two sentences? So you must tell him, you mustn't tell him, and you don't have to tell him. So what do you think is different? Could you please write the answers in the chat box? Strong obligation, yes. Yes, don't have, mustn't. Obligation, don't have to, no need. All right. Sometimes this could be quite tricky. This question is a tricky one, not everyone gets it. So number one, strong obligation, or actually there is a prohibition to do it. So you're forbidden, yes, not allowed. It's a bad idea to tell him something, and it's not necessary to tell him that. And during the interview, you might have something like this, a task where you need to match the sentence or phrase to the ending to show the context, because context does help us to clarify the meaning and to make it clear to the students. So you mustn't tell him, as he'll tell everyone about that, and we don't want people to know about it. And you don't have to tell him, as I'm meeting him tomorrow and I can do it myself. So that was about grammar. You will also be asked about vocabulary and meaning, form, which in this case is spelling, and pronunciation. So here are some example tasks for that. The odd one out, meaning. Have a look at these and write the letter in the chat box. Which one is the odd one out? D. So is it D or B? Excited is out, because easygoing, sociable, and friendly are personality features or traits. And excited is an adjective used to describe how someone is feeling and would normally be taught as part of a different lexical set or a different lesson. All right, how about these 4? So this is where it can get a bit tricky, because here you're also tested on your lexical precision. So could you please write which one is out for this set? C, D. Yes. D is out because the first 3 refer to a way of walking, and the last one is used to describe a way of talking, right? So that's why this one is out. So these are some of the typical questions in the vocabulary section. All right. You're also, some centers will ask you to comment on the pronunciation. And that normally involves either some difficult sounds or counting the number of syllables and saying which ones are stressed. So could you please have a look at these words and write in the chat box which ones would go in the first column. The stress pattern would be 3 syllables with the first one, the first syllable stressed. All right, Saturday is correct. Yes, 3 syllables. The first one is stressed. Any other words? All right, let's think about that for a moment. How about the second one? 3 syllables. The second one is stressed. Which ones would you write in the second column? All right, impression, yes. Successful, okay, good. And what about the last column? So now the last column. Somebody wrote chocolate in there, great. All right. Yes, here are the correct answers. So the first one, only one word in the first column, and it's Saturday. The second one is impression, successful. Then chocolate. I guess, yeah, so this, we have a lot of vowels here, but a lot of letters, but not all of them are pronounced. So it's chocolate. Fountain and 20. Good job. Next one, functional language. So as I mentioned, this is grammar and vocabulary used in specific situations. Right? So functional language here, in this case, you should see a doctor that would be giving, what would be giving advice, as I mentioned already. Okay, so this is our example. Have a look at this phrase. Do you mind opening the window? What is the function? When would you say this phrase and to do what? So you should say a doctor, you would say it to give advice. You might open in the window. You would say this phrase to do what? Right. So some answers there. Good. Request. Any other ideas? Right. So yes, and the only person is the winner today. Yes, do you mind opening the window? This is a polite request. Absolutely. What about the third? I'm sorry, I forgot to call you. So what is the function here? Absolutely. This one is easy. Good. Apologizing. Great job, everyone. So many active participants today. Thank you so much. Right. So we're done with language awareness, and here's some of the examples that you can see in the application, or some of those questions you can be asked during the interview as well. Sometimes if there are some issues or you need to provide more information on something in the application form, the trainer will ask you those questions during the interview. So, but again, there's nothing to worry about, because the job of the trainer is not to, is actually to show you what the course is about and to understand if you are ready for the course today, right now. So let's talk about teaching ideas now. This is something that will also be mentioned during the interview. So here's a list of things, and the CELTA courses are interesting because normally you're not allowed to use the L1 of your students. Because in some countries, you will have people who do not share their L1 in the classroom as students and as teachers as well. That's why we need to be able to use different ways to help learners understand the meaning or convey the meaning, as this is the official term from CELTA course. So here's the word, a nurse. And 6 possible ways. On the course, you will learn about more, of course. 6 possible ways of conveying meaning using reality or real objects, drawing picture, mime gestures, definition, opposites or synonyms, and mini story or an anecdote. So imagine you're working with a group of beginners or elementary students, and you want to teach them the word nurse. So how would you help them to understand what the word means? Okay, I can already see some answers in the chat box. Good. Okay. All right, this is good. So drawing and picture. This is correct. Great job. Well, I'm not going to say this is correct. Probably this is the best one in this particular situation with your learner in mind. How about scared? Have a look at it. Which one would you use to help learners understand the meaning? Mm-hmm. Okay, some good ideas. All right. My favorites in this case would be mime and gestures or mini story. But again, it depends on the level of the students. Could be drawing and picture for elementary students or mini story or an anecdote to if you work with higher level learners. For example, last night I woke up at 12 o'clock at night. I was alone at home and I could hear a noise in the kitchen. How do you think I felt? So that would be the mini story in creating the context. Right. How about this one? To walk. Which would you use for this? All right, I can see opposites and synonyms. That's interesting. How would you use 5 for that? What would be the opposite of walking? Standing? Sit. Okay, good. But as I just mentioned, so for example, the opposite of walking could be running, could be standing, could be sitting, right? So people might have different ideas. So mime and gesture would probably be the best one and the easiest one to understand. How would you help your learners understand the difference between these two structures? This is a very common question during CELTA interviews. So, and I normally, this is the question I normally ask. I have 2 sentences and I ask people, like, okay, so how would you help your learners understand the difference between them? So, and right now, looking at these 2 sentences, the level of your students is probably intermediate. So how would you go about it? What would you do? Process and result. All right, that's very good. So you can match them. Mm-hmm. Right. Let's go back to the standard ways of conveying meaning. For us today, there are standards. So what would you use? Can you please write the number? And it's okay to take time to think about it. Mm-hmm. Context does help a lot. until now? All right, good. Okay, some good ideas. I'm not saying that that is impossible. Absolutely, context will definitely help. How about this? You can also use pictures, actually. And if you can use pictures and if you can use them well, I would recommend doing it because people do respond well to pictures. They like some visual information. You know, when you start explaining something to them, for a lot of learners, that will be a bit stressful because if their listening skills are not the strongest, they will feel confused by that and a bit tense and overwhelmed sometimes. You know, pictures do help. So here, you can ask them to match the sentence to the picture. So she's packed her suitcase and she's been packing the whole day. All right, some other questions you might be asked. So how would you help learners to understand the meaning of the structure? I wish I hadn't told them the truth. How would you help your learners practice using personality adjectives? So what would be the practice activity for them? How would you do them? Would you give them a gap fill exercise, or would you ask them to talk about someone they know, you know, to describe their partner or describe a relative or something? So what would be the practice activity for these adjectives? In what situation would your learners be using adjectives describing appearance? How would you use this in the classroom? And I think that's a good one because for adjectives to describe appearance, some of the activities can be quite dull and they're not very interesting. So I remember one of the things, I think actually that was a CELTA trainer who came up with that. So you're meeting someone, a friend's husband at the airport, and you've never seen that person. So you're the friend, and or you need to describe what your husband looks like to a person, and they need to choose them in the picture. So that would be interesting. That would create some interesting context for this sort of practice of the adjectives used to describe appearance. So how would you maximize speaking time for learners practicing have you ever and answers? Yes, I have. No, I haven't. Another good one. So in this case, you want your learners to keep saying, to repeat this phrase several times. And how would you get them to do it? Would they be working in pairs? Would they be mingling? Would they be asking everyone in the classroom or in the hallway this question, right? So when we ask about teaching ideas, we want to see how people respond to these. It doesn't mean that your ideas need to be really original and they need to be, there is no one correct answer to this question, but we do want to have a conversation about teaching teaching practices that you're used to and some principles of teaching, and see how you feel about them and what your opinion on them is, to understand how you'll be coping with the content on the course as well. Right, because some of that can be quite different from your teaching experience. So we need to talk about this to make sure that you don't have any nasty surprises during the course. Right, teacher talk is another thing that you are often asked about during the interview. And again, it's very practical and deals with classroom management. So how would you make these instructions easier to understand for lower level learners? And here's the first one. And I'll give you an example. So now I'd like you to take your pens and write the words I say. Please listen and write. That would make it short, especially when you work with beginners or elementary level students. So here's another one. Could you please repeat what you've just said for everyone to hear you? Can you give a short phrase to make the instructions clear to low-level learners, like I did in the example. Could you please write the answers in the chat box? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Please repeat would be enough, because technically they can hear, they can understand from the context that it wasn't loud enough, or you can add more loudly. So, but let's try to keep it short. And here's one more. Now read the text and jot down the answers to questions in exercise 2A. I like this, jot down. You hear it sometimes in CELTA courses. Right, so how can you make this one shorter? Mm-hmm. And answer. Why not? Read and answer the questions in exercise 2A, please. Of course, you can make it even shorter. Here, I feel that the amount of information is about right, so no unknown words. And this is one of the important things you need to know about the CELTA course. You are asked to control your teacher talk on the course, and not only the amount, but also the quality. It's not only the quantity, it's the quality as well. So here, the word jot down would not be acceptable, because you can't expect your learners, your elementary intermediate learners, to know that word. That's why you need to grade your language and use the words for the instructions, which are easy for them to understand. Classroom practices. Let's talk about this some more. So you could also be asked, who should do most of the speaking in the classroom, the teacher or the students, right? So we do want to know about your beliefs about what's acceptable in the classroom. Why is it a good idea to get learners to work in pairs? That's another common question. So, and it's not only about why would be the first one. The second one would be, how would you get your learners to work in pairs? Sometimes you can be asked to talk about the good things about working in pairs and some disadvantages of that. Because, yeah, let's be honest with each other, not all students actually enjoy speaking to their partner all the time, because they want to speak to the teacher. And, well, that's why they are not happy, because they want their teachers to correct them all the time. It's a good idea to correct all the mistakes that students make. That's one of my favorite things. And of course, there could be different views on that. And yeah, probably I'm not going to tell you what I think about it, because it's an interesting question to discuss on any course, any CELTA course. So, and again, it's rather controversial. Or is it a good idea to ask learners to read texts out loud? That's another trick questions. But again, the reason you're asked this question is not to prove, the trainers are not trying to prove you wrong or to disagree with you. They really want to know what you think. And probably after that, if they kind of disagree with your answer, they will ask you some more questions, which again is more of a discussion. You don't have to know it all. It's about having a chat about it and seeing what you think and how you feel about different things that happen in the classroom. All right, so here's some of the tips for the interview. To prepare for the interview, it's a good idea to revise the parts of speech, but I don't think that people attending this webinar need to do that. You seem to be fine with that. Absolutely. Normally, I'll be honest with you, normally native speaker teachers struggle with that. And I remember some, like 3 or 4 years ago, I actually had to teach parts of speech to a group of Americans and Brits, actually, yes. And that was not easy because I had no idea how to do that. But we all managed to survive that session. So know the names of the tenses and how they are formed. Well, yes, good idea to revise those. Revise some grammar rules. And one of the basic and most famous books is English Grammar in Use by Raymond Murphy. I will give you some lists of the books that I personally like, but again, that's about my preferences. I feel those books are useful. It's okay to disagree with me. Think of more creative ways to help learners understand new language. For all practicing teachers nowadays, when you're teaching, and if you're teaching through some rules or explanations, start thinking about how do you think, what can you do to make it easier and more engaging for the learners to understand the language. So think of some of the techniques we talked about today, if you're not doing that already. Be honest with the trainer interviewing you if you have any concerns about the course. Again, the interview is the chance for you to ask a CELTA trainer questions. So you're not going to be interviewed by an admin person. You'll be interviewed by a CELTA trainer. So you need to ask them questions and you need to tell them what you worry about, because it doesn't mean that they will say something like, no, all right, so if you're worried about that, maybe you should not take this course. No, we're going to have a conversation about the strategies. And some of the concerns about the course are actually, well, not that serious, or they're not real concerns at all. So ask the trainer questions and be nice to yourself. Don't stress yourself out without any need for that. Be honest when asked about general health. We do ask that question. And again, in my experience, unfortunately, I've had some situations with some trainees who tried to hide, to conceal that information from us. That wasn't very pleasant. Most of them passed the course eventually. I can remember only one trainee, it was a long time ago and not in Ukraine, who was asked to withdraw from the course because we told him that he's not going to complete it. Well, he's not going to pass it. That could happen. That person had a very severe ADHD condition. He couldn't write, he couldn't produce a lesson plan, he couldn't focus on something, on one thing, and that's probably one of the most difficult situations we had on the CELTA course. Well, I've seen on the CELTA course. Again, if there are any things, could be anything really, could be asthma, could be arthritis, could be dyslexia, which could be a bit of a challenge, but the trainers need to know about it, not because they need to know about it because the course is stressful. And if you're under stress and sleep deprived for several days and you don't have enough time to eat proper food, that might trigger some undesirable health-related situations. Let's put it this way. That's why it is the job of the trainer to give you an extra warning and to start thinking about how to deal with that if anything happens. So again, it is our job to warn people that and for them to be informed about what the requirements are, what they need to do on the course in order to pass it, because we don't want anyone to fail. And of course, the interview is chance for you to ask questions. So one of the things you can do to prepare for the interview is actually make a list of questions you have about the course. If you are thinking about taking this course, you can call the center, but at some centers you will deal with an admin person. At our center, normally if people have questions about the CELTA course, I normally answer the phone or I call them back and we talk about the course. But please make sure that you ask a CELTA trainer all of your questions. Not all of them, but the important ones. Things to remember. Some centers have the policy of not telling the results of the interview right away. Well, some centers just have that policy. If they just say goodbye, not congratulations to you at the end of the interview, that's fine, right? You're not expected to know it all, right? It's okay to ask for time to think about something. If you're asked to think of the ways to clarify meaning to students, or like I just did with present perfect, simple and continuous, she's packed and she's been packing the whole day. It's okay to take your time to think about it. You don't have to come up with the answer right on the spot, and we know that. It's okay to be nervous. There's no need, there's no reason for this, but it is okay. And of course we do understand that, and we try to do our best to put candidates at ease at the beginning of the interview. The tutor who interviews you may not be your tutor on the course. That's another important thing to know about, but it's okay to ask them if they're going to be your tutor or not. But at some centers, at our center, normally our trainers interview the students. The people who work at our center full-time do the interviews. But some centers do hire people from other countries, and they do outsource this. It's a good idea to ask the tutor if there is anything to work on or improve before the course. Why not? Actually, if you ask them this question, they might ask for some thinking time and will later send you an email with that. But it's okay to do that. How can you prepare for the CELTA course? Here's some grammar books. I mentioned these are the ones that I like. Doesn't mean that they're the best. I like them. Reading and listening to English to help improve your vocabulary. Doing Cambridge pre-course tasks, which will be sent to you by the center with the letter of acceptance. So you cannot find them online. They will be sent to you by the center. Reading some methodology books, Learning Teaching by Scrivener and How to Teach English by Jeremy Harmer. I do prefer Scrivener. All right, so I will say that, well, I normally recommend Scrivener. I recommend my trainees to read that book, but that's okay. In How to Teach English, there are a lot of good ideas as well. And well, we do have teaching foundation courses at our company if you're interested in them, and if you'd like to be more confident about it. And in my experience, but based on what I've seen from our trainees, our teaching foundation courses do help teachers, either novice teachers, to have some understanding of the communicative methodology, or even experienced teachers benefit from them, and they normally go for higher grades. But again, it's not compulsory, and if you'd like to, you can take one of those courses. If not, that's fine as well. Right, now it's time for me to answer your questions, right? And I can see a list of questions here. I'll be, please write them in the chat box. I'll be happy to answer them. Let me scroll to the top. Okay. Okay, so here are the first questions. Is that right that first of all, I need to pass IELTS exam? No, you don't need to take that exam, because during the interview, the trainers can understand what level of English you have. So no, we do not ask for certificates. We just need to see your written language and we need to speak to you. right. I'm looking at some other questions. Mhm. Lots of answers today. Thank you so much for participating so actively. Right, so here are some of the questions. Which certificate should I get to become a CELTA trainer? Well, yes, so this is a part of the Cambridge deal now and business. And yes, in order to become a CELTA trainer, you need to have the Delta qualification. But the problem is that there are 3 modules in Delta. The first one is the more theoretical one. This is the exam that you need to take. And at our center, you can take the exam and we do exam preparation for the course. You also, the second module is teaching practice. And when people are interviewed for that, the CELTA will definitely be talked about. Normally, we do recommend that people do, this is a Cambridge recommendation, actually, not only our centers. So the answer to that would be that we recommend CELTA, 2 years of teaching after CELTA, and then it's a good idea to apply for Delta Module 2. So to be honest with you, I do think it helps. On our previous Delta course that we had here, in summer, we had 1 trainee, only 1 out of 12 did not have CELTA. She did struggle initially, but she has worked at a company where they use the communicative approach, and she has been observed by CELTA qualified teachers and everything. So she knew a lot about the communicative approach, but there were some surprises for her. So I do recommend doing CELTA before Delta and then getting some experience. And 2 years, I think, is the right number of years of teaching. Of course, it depends on how many hours you teach every day, but still, it does give enough time to reflect on what you learned during the CELTA and take your teaching to really do the next level during your Delta Module 2, and then become a CELTA trainer. It doesn't happen overnight, fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know. What are the requirements for working in the international house in the USA? It depends. Normally, it depends who do you want to work as the international house in the USA. Yes, international house worldwide does require the CELTA certificate or the equivalent. They do have their own course, which is the equivalent of the CELTA. And I'll be honest with you, 12 years ago, I took that course in Kharkiv in Ukraine, but anti-CELTA equivalent. So it's either that or CELTA. But of course, you will need a visa to go to the United States and work there. And that has nothing to do with CELTA or the certificates. Is the CELTA course worth taking if I've already got TESOL and teaching TEFL certificate? It depends. Thank you very much for the good question, Mariana. So the answer to that would be a question, actually. Did your TESOL and teaching TEFL course include observed teaching practice? So was there, if it did not, then yes, you do need to take CELTA, because this is what makes CELTA so different. And this is the main reason why it is recognized around the world. Because on the CELTA course, after the CELTA course, when you get the certificate, the person looking at that certificate, they know that you can teach in the classroom, online or offline. But if you've done the online module with no teaching practice or an online course, yes, so we will not know that. As an employer, I wouldn't hire a teacher without any assessed teaching practice or practical component. That's why CELTA is good, because you teach, you're assessed by a reliable trainer, and the employer will know that you can teach after the course. Right, so do we have any other questions here? Right, so again, my name is Diana Vasilenko. I'm the CELTA trainer, director of teaching teacher training at International Language Center in Kiev. And here's the QR code to our website. If you're interested in the CELTA course, you will get an email from us telling you that we decided to have this special offer for people attending our webinars and an extra discount on the CELTA course for people who signed up and attended the webinar. So please keep following us. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. So you can call us, and well, I'll be happy to, if I'm not there at that particular moment, I'll be happy to call you back and answer them. And I do hope to see you with us soon, online or offline, but yes. Thank you very much, and thank you for being such a great audience today and participating in in doing all the tasks during the webinar. Thank you very much. Have a lovely rest of the Friday and a nice weekend. Please keep in touch. Goodbye.